Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Quaternity Live. I'm Priyanka, as you all know, and I'm joined by my always wonderful brother, Shreyas. You want to come
Hi,
say hi?
Priyanka. Always good to be here. Excited to be back on the live.
We're very, very excited for today because we're going to be talking about all of the features of the engine. And Shreyas, I'm really gonna count on you to give me a little bit of like an exclusive guided tour of the website as it exists right now, all of the features, all that good stuff. So you're gonna be talking a lot today, just as a fun little heads up.
Happy
Um,
to.
Excellent. So cool. So then maybe we should just start. I'm gonna share my screen and we can get started. Um, Let me actually hold on. Let me first log out and then we can go from there because we're going back to the basics for anyone who happens to be on this live today who has not seen our website before. So for all of our new users, welcome. This is our Quaternity website. This is pretty much the engine where you can play Quaternity online. And you can have an account, you can sign up, you can start by like playing, you can like try out the game if you would like. But yeah, Shreyas, do you want to take us through anything in particular? Are there like any things we should like catch of this? Is there anything you want to call out?
Yeah, totally. So, I think there are a couple different things worth mentioning here at this point, right? The first thing is that I think our intention is very clearly to always make sure the game is accessible and free to play for everybody, independent of like how sort of we progress. And so this like play now, for example, that's even like pre-logging in is intended to allow anyone to just come and play, and we allow people to play 10 times just with the bots in order to get sort of a feel and a taste of the game. So that's sort of the play now feature. That's just going to drop you in. Like if you hit that, it's just going to drop you into a game that starts off. I forget the exact time configuration. I think it's like a 12-minute game or something like that with 3 bots, right? And I think that's like a very good way to just get started, given Quaternity is a new game and you've got to sort of learn. The other aspect with that is also again learning, where there's the tutorial on the top left, and this is also does not require anybody to create an account or anything like that. And again, the intention is to allow people to just learn more about the game as easily as possible and as low friction of a way that as possible. uh, our community is global. I think we've got users in something like 38 or 40 countries. I don't remember the exact number. It's constantly rising. And so we've trying to be inclusive of the entire community. And so on the bottom left, what you see there is like a language selector where it's in English right now. And while this is not perfect, we, I think, support Spanish, Russian, and Chinese. And so look, as always, looking to sort of refine that and extend to other languages as well, given we've got a big sort of Portuguese community and so on who plays the game. So I think that's sort of like the highlights, I guess, here. Does that sound
Mhm.
good? And of course, you sign up in order to sort of look at the stuff that's behind the sign up wall.
For sure. So this is what the play now, I see. So I think it looks like 15 plus 3.
15 plus 3.
So might want to sign up because that makes sense, right? Because a classic game, I believe, is 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we just found that this was what people played most normally. And I think, again, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the most likely person to do something like this, right? They're going to be someone who's new to the game, and there's a lot going on the board. I mean, we all know this, like a 12 by 12 board. There's so much more going on. There are the 4 colors, etc.
Mhm.
And so I think you need to have a slightly longer game, not the blitz format that's the most popular right now, in order to just sort of like take in everything that's going on and have the time to sort of process, right? So that's
Yeah,
sort of like the idea here.
totally. Cool. Sounds great. So for anyone else who is interested in signing up, the process is pretty simple. You just hit the sign up button, enter your email, your password, standard stuff. Just follow the instructions all the way to the bottom, agree to your privacy policy, terms of service. Yeah, and then you just kind of hit sign up. You should be seeing our video playing on the right. That'll give you a little bit more information. Fun fact, if you want to watch any of those videos on your own time after this live is over, please just look in our description below. There's a link to the playlist where we have all of these FAQ videos up. and you can check them out. Of course, once you sign up, verify your email, all of that, you log in, which we're just going to do that. Cool. Great. Let's give it a second to load. Excellent. Oh, okay. This is fun. All right. So for those viewers who joined us last week, so I was going to go to something else, but this is far more exciting. We had a fun little live last week where Shreyas, we've been hearing a lot of rumors about stuff that y'all have been working on the back end. And I'm seeing a little update here. Is this what we can expect? Is this a sneak peek of it?
I guess so. I mean, I'm a little bit surprised to see this pop up here because it's still in the final stages of sort of testing and quality control. But yeah, I think in a couple of weeks I'm expecting to be back to walk you all through all the stuff we've been hard at work on.
Amazing. I'm very honored to be a beta tester. This is going to be great. Okay, cool. So I guess coming into this next is just creating a game, right? Walk us through that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is supposed to be as simple as possible. You actually do not need to select anything over here. Stuff's pre-selected. It's set to 15 minutes by default. And you can just hit create and you can get started. But if you wanted to customize it, right, you can create a name for your game. This will be useful in the future with the sort of new set of features that are coming out, where this allows you to sort of find this game in the future. Right? The time setting is the amount of time that each player has in total. So like when you say 10 minutes over here, that first main time is sort of assigned is the amount of time that each sort of color has. That's only applicable to human players, not the bots, because the bots are not intelligent enough to be able to change their play based on the amount of time. But for human players, that's sort of the timer that's associated. In addition, there's this notion of an incremental time, which for people who come from the chess world is something you'll be familiar with. The basic idea is that there's some amount of like mechanical time and in an online game, network time that's necessary for every move to be processed. And so you add back a few seconds each move to sort of make sure that you're making up for that lost time, right? Because otherwise you're just going to lose time every turn. And so normally that's between 3 and 5 seconds. If you want to allow for the ability to gain time, sometimes that's 7 seconds. That's sort of like the rough range. The time for each move, this is, I think, like pretty unique to Quaternity. Like I think there are like 1 or 2 other variations which maybe have this, but it's not common in chess, where given we have 4 players, we want to keep the game dynamic, we want to keep it engaged. And so you can opt to have a timer per move, so that if you're in a 20-minute game, somebody doesn't run the clock down for like 19 minutes, right? And so if you have a minute on sort of the move timer, you will lose if you do not make the time move in that time, just like you would if you were to run out of time in total, right? It's sort of the same concept. And the mode, we'll come back to this because that's got to do with sort of personalization and customization. But yeah, let's address this later in sort of the live.
Cool. Do you have a preference between like the unlimited for move versus like 1, 2, or 3?
I mean, I think for the sake of like casual games, I definitely prefer like the time limit per move. Generally, a couple minutes is what I prefer. I think there is value in unlimited because when you're playing very long games, like 20 minutes a person, and you're really sort of shooting for depth in complex middle game positions, there are times when it's much well worth it to sort of spend the time to think further. But it really depends on sort of the style of player, right? And like what you're going for in that game. So
got it. Okay, so I'm gonna hit create on this. Ooh, excellent. And I'm white. I don't love playing white, but especially after our live where you also mentioned you don't like playing white, I feel like that's doubly true for me now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure my dislike is like particularly rational, but yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of playing white.
No, do you know what? I like when I first started and I used to not like playing white, it was because this is so silly. I just didn't like being the first person on the board to make a move. I just didn't like it because I used to feel like this is weird pressure. But by the way, I've been getting so many compliments and clout, and my game has improved so much since the live where we talked openings, and you talked about the opening that you had.
I
Yo,
thought I was told that opening is now obsolete, and I'm on old news, but I guess it still works at least for some folks. I don't know.
it works well for me. I modified it a little bit.
As it
Right.
should be.
And I kind of messed around with which moves I make first and stuff like that. But no, oh my God. Like I don't know, you should watch our Blitz shows. For everyone else, it's on our YouTube. You can find it on our playlists if you head to our channel. There have been multiple games where I've tried out that opening, and every time I try out the opening, my game goes like much better than it does otherwise because it just really sets you up so well. Anyway, plug for how smart my brother is, just in case anyone was wondering.
I
But
do think that I am glad you said you're experimenting with stuff and sort of like making it your own, though, because I think the beauty and like advantage of sort of engaging with Quaternity as early as it is right now is that so much of it is just undiscovered, right?
yeah,
There's no literature, there aren't like tons of openings, nobody knows which one really is better than the other one. And so in fact, I think it is because so much is unknown, it is highly likely that as you experiment, you will come up with something that is better, at least in some circumstances. So
for sure.
I would encourage everybody to do that, and I'm glad you are.
For sure. Okay, I'm just gonna, for fun, I'm gonna hit create without touching anything the way we were talking about and see what happens. And you're right, it just goes PK's game, 15 plus 5, and then you play and see I'm white again. I swear I'm convinced your engine has like my email down for like, let's give her white as much as possible.
You can just leave and join again. I mean, this, right? Like once you're on this thing, if you don't like white and your friends have not joined yet, you can hit the X. Yeah, and you're good. And now you have a color that you prefer.
Yeah,
straightforward.
so I like that, and I've definitely done that accidentally once because I joined twice by mistake.
Yeah.
But I have this weird thing where I'm like, no, but if that's the one I was assigned first, that's the one I'll play, and then I just like.
I mean, this is about as close to truly random as it gets. There is no intention that should be assumed behind the color assignment, but anyway.
I know, we're good. Cool. All righty. So we have create a new game, but I guess like this is the point at which we come to personalization, right? Because so like let's go back here. I'm just gonna
right on.
so also you can also watch the game instead of play it.
Yeah.
What happens if I hit cancel?
Nothing. I mean, I think so. So the difference between watch and cancel right now is like quite limited. The main thing is just that if you watch, then you're sort of set up as a watcher, and it's more a signal to everybody that like as we build out, we're intending to add on features that really make it more fun for people who are watching, right? Like things like chats among each other and so on. They haven't built all of that out yet, but that sort of self-selection allows you to opt into those features when they come.
Got it. I love having you on here. I feel like I get all of the inside scoop into what's coming and what people are asking for, because also the important thing, right, is that like y'all are clearly always listening, because like as someone who tends to be on the social media side more, like I know what people ask for and things that they're interested in, and it's nice to know that like y'all are responding to that feedback and like things are coming out and being developed out. So that's cool. But
it's the most important thing, right? At the end of the day, the needs of the community and like sort of growing the community is probably the most important thing. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but unfortunately people don't always do the most important thing, so I'm glad we are. That's great. Cool. Okay. But on a more interesting note to myself, so here's a fun fact for viewers. When I usually play personally, this is not what my screen looks like. I was changing it around recently, and I kind of decided to play around with some colors, but my screen looks really different. And that is because Quaternity allows you to personalize things. Have at it, brother dearest.
So do you want to switch to the standard mode first on the left?
Yes.
So what most folks will see, and by default, this is what everybody has access to, right? We'll come to NFTs again in just a second, but and there are these basic settings here. I mean, I think the sound is something that people appreciate, where sounds are supposed to come on when a move is made, right? And there are slightly different sounds if a piece is captured, if somebody's put in check, or if it's checkmate. Like those are the three big sort of like sounds. And the reason that's useful is that, like all of us, I mean, one would hope that we're 100% engaged with the game at all times. But I'm sure everybody has multiple tabs open and is looking at other things sometimes in the middle of a game. And what the sound allows you to do is just know when the move is made, right? Or if you're like paying attention, thinking very deeply about a position, it's often possible to miss sort of a change, and the sound is just one other trigger to know when a move has occurred. So that draws your attention. So that's the sound. But of course, you may not be in a place where you want the sound, and maybe you just don't like it, so you can turn that off. The piece orientation is an interesting one. I actually don't know a ton of people who use the piece orientation a ton. And it looks like I actually don't know that anything changed there. Let me switch back. The piece orientation. Okay. So yeah, I think something's off with that. But like in the intention in the past was to have the pieces on top switch so that they're in like laterally sort of invert. It's I think sometimes useful if you have people on an iPad who are like you four people playing on the same sort of iPad, which is a situation that does occur where you have four people literally sitting around a screen. I think if you are playing solo, that's not really something that is like that valuable. But if you have four people on an iPad, I think that can work. So colors of captured, yeah. So this is whether you want the colors to change automatically after you capture colors or not. We set that by default to be the case because that's the quickest way for people to know that a checkmate has occurred. And generally, I think folks have expressed, that is like one of the things that they find really cool, that when a checkmate happens, the army which you've just captured becomes immediately yours. The reason we allow for that to not be the case as well is because that's sort of the more authentic experience, because if you were playing on a board, the colors are not going to change, right? So you actually have to keep the complexity in your head of knowing that the red color and the green color is yours if you were red and you checkmated green. So I think that's sort of like those three sort of board related settings, or sort of like general sort of settings. Then we come to the background, where today we have three different background sort of, like I want to call them themes or environments for the entire sort of for the entire system. You've got the light mode, you've got dark mode, and then you've got our quaternity colors, right? So those are the three right now. This is completely up to each individual. I think the only thing that remains constant are the sort of racing stripes that are emblematic of quaternity right now. I personally, I think, use the colors a lot because I like the colors, but I know people who like whatever. And so here you can definitely expect that in time we're going to sort of have like a bunch more options that allow you to make it really look like something that you're comfortable in. Does that make sense?
For sure. And I think I'm with you. I really like playing with the colors on. It's just, I don't know, it's like a nice, very warm, inviting environment to me. But I know Madhu, who some people would know from our Blitz show as well, he plays, I believe, in dark mode more often than not.
Yeah. I think the dark mode's like quite popular for sure. And I mean, it's nice at night, for example, if you were playing with the lights off, like the dark mode is like nicer for sure. Okay, so then we can go to the actual board itself, which are the colors. And so if you go to the color thing under the board settings, let's start with that. So you've got you can decide to have either textured or untextured, right? And so textured is sort of, so if you go back to the first one, this is like the classic. It's kind of like a wood texture. It's supposed to be, as close to a sort of a classic set as one can imagine. And I think I would say that, well, the first piece set and this is probably what I would call the default for like a tournament or something like that, right? But there are a bunch of other color patterns. So for example, the tan and brown, which is right next to that, that's I think what Lichess uses by default. The green and like the super light green lime, that's like what chess.com uses. You've got the gray and the like blue, and so like it's basically a set of different options. Again, we're just trying to give people the entirety of like as much as possible in order for them to find what works for them. then you've got notation where it's just, depending on what your purpose is, that might be useful or it might not. If you're playing, often people go with the one in the middle where the notation is inside the tile, and the reason this is useful is because this is the largest the board possibly can be, right? Because otherwise the border is taking space. But if you're a watcher, for example, you actually might prefer the first or the second option, because when you're talking to somebody, it's actually very important that you're able to tell which square you're talking about, right? And so depending on, even when you're playing in a pair, if you're the person who's not driving, you might prefer to do this because it's faster to figure out that, you want to talk about the square E6, right? And that's like potentially a little bit harder to do on the other one. So that's, again, like, I think it's again a personal choice of like what role you're playing with the game at that time, and just what you need to do. Last piece is brightness, which is exactly what would imply. It's to do with the board. It's like, just the brightness of the board or not, right? And so you can pick sort of whatever you want there based on what suits you. And then finally, you've got these different piece sets. Again, this is like truly whatever you prefer as an individual. They're different styles, different sort of like, just like artistic styles, and then you can pick whatever resonates the most with you.
Fun fact, when I'm playing, I actually need the notations like this, even though the board is a little bit smaller, because I actually rely on them a little bit. On the online version, of course, when you're playing in person, it feels different, but because I rely on them a little bit to clock if I'm putting my piece in a play, like if I'm putting a piece on a spot that like is being attacked or like is on a different line, like it helps me to know and identify. And it's just how I've learned to see the board. So that was funny. Because this, and you know what? I don't know if I've ever told you this. I tried using a couple of other notations ones, and I could see a noticeable difference in my game. So I totally see how changing that makes a difference to what you want to do. Wild. Okay. So I think this is like a good time as any. I know that for some folks who've been watching, like, that we have custom boards that we now offer. It's called NFT mode on the site. So it's where Shreyas mentioned before, where you can, right now we're personalizing everything in standard mode. But we can also turn on NFT mode, or like custom mode essentially. So you can kind of customize your custom board as well. Want to go over that?
Yes, I mean, like, before you do that, like, go to the account settings, please, for a second. Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing here is that you can look at, so NFTs are this like crypto concept, which is not like super important for the purpose of personalization, but it is useful just to be aware of it, because what it means is that this will allow you the idea behind these boards they're meant to be collectibles, right? They're meant to be in collectibles. They're meant to hold value as the game becomes more popular. Like, acquiring these should have like prestige and so on associated with it, and we expect that in time you will be able to actually redeem that value at some point by like trading it, right? And that's why it's a token and an NFT. And the little bit of complexity that's added is that if you chose to purchase one of these boards, you would need to sort of connect a wallet and stuff like that. But members of our team are like very happy to help people who are unfamiliar with this sort of phrase. But what ends up happening is that you have a wallet that is connected to your account. That happens in the account page. You can even actually purchase a token right here, and that will take you to like a credit card interface. If you hit purchase now, it gives you like a couple different options, and then you can leave a note to us. And then once you sort of like run this payment, a member of our team will be directly in touch with you in order to sort of like make sure that you can pick the particular board you want and so on. With the NFT boards, it's important to remember that, like, first and foremost, this is like, there's the utility aspect of using this to play, which we're going to come to, but it's also art, right? And so like I think it's sort of just like cool artwork designed by an artist named Nick Roth, who lives in LA, and yeah, so like it's sort of for people who appreciate the art as well as sort of are interested in customizing their experience. So if you're one of those people who has bought one of these boards, and so obviously your account has one clear here, Priyanka, but then you have one of these, at that point, if you go to personalize, so if you close this and go to personalize, you have this option of NFT mode, right? Which only occurs if you have one of these. So like if you are a person who doesn't own an NFT board, then you're not going to see this NFT mode here. But if you do, then you can actually choose to take, like, use the utility of the NFT, which is to use it as a board. And that there's a different set of now configurations, because actually this is like, it's the art is actually a video of a dynamic sort of motion on sort of the board. And so you can switch between the single frame and sort of video mode. And so like if you can't really tell because of the opacity settings right now. So if you increase the opacity, or it's reduce the opacity, right? You go left.
Both. Increase the dark and then reduce the light, or no, yeah.
No, you reduce both. Yeah, so you reduce both. And you see that there's a video, right? And now I think most people who play with this do not actually play with the video, because it kind of becomes like super hard to see what's going on. And so if you truly want to use it as a utility, the motion in the back can be distracting. And so you can switch to sort of the single frame mode, where if you hit the single frame mode, you can now pick whichever frame you want. I think there are about 700 and how many is it? 720, right? Yeah, that's 720 frames per sort of video. So you can pick whichever one you want that you like the most with this. And then the opacity now, so the light opacity and dark opacity refers to the opacity of either light squares or dark squares. So if you put both to 100, what ends up happening is you end up with a black and white board, right?
Oh.
And so depending on how much you want the art to show up, you can appropriately decide to sort of like tune the opacity. And so once you set this, these are sort of your default settings. And so if you go back to now like creating a game, so if you go to the main menu, you create a new game, and you hit NFT mode at the bottom, it now gives you an option to select a token. And before you hit create, you can see on the right side, you've got those settings described, where it's the frame and then the opacity, which you just configured. And this is a little bit important, because unlike the standard mode, you can change at any point in time and it'll reflect on all your games. But because this is like this particular board is backed by an NFT, these settings have to be fixed before the game starts, because not only are they for you, but you can also share with your friends, even if your friends who are playing the game do not own the NFT themselves, right? And so in order for the sort of program to understand what to share with your friends, it needs to have those settings up front. And so now these settings are set for the purpose of this game. And if you go and change the NFT settings, you can, but it's not going to affect this game. It's only going to affect the next sort of NFT style game that you decide to create.
Got it. So I'm just going to mess around with that for a second.
Okay.
Let's just, I don't know. Fine, sure. And then switch to 273. And let's, for fun, have things move. I love playing with the moving board. I know that Chico also is like me and loves playing like the moving board, or maybe I'm like him, either way. But most people.
That's pretty impressive. I think that's not straightforward, so that's cool.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, you're right. If we go back to the game, it's the one that we set before, and that makes sense because like that's what's already programmed in, for sure. But now if we create a new game and I do NFT mode, see, so the frame's gone and the opacity is different. And now here, these are going to be my settings, right?
That's exactly right. And so when you hit play now, because this is an NFT, sometimes it takes some time, and you see there's the motion in the background. Right. Importantly, if anybody else joins this game, because you invite them, they will also see this particular NFT setting, even though they don't own the NFT board, right? So you're able to sort of share the NFT board with your friends, but yeah. So
that's very cool, because it's very much like you're bringing, it's like in a sense, it's the closest you can get to like an in-person thing of bringing your board to a game and like being like, here, I have this cool board, let's all play together.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, yeah, the utility is interesting. I think there are lots of people who enjoy playing on it. To me, like I like the art part of it more in this run. So really it depends on what sort of is exciting to you, right? So
for sure. But you brought up a very important thing, which is inviting. Inviting friends. How do we do that? I'm assuming we start with the button that says invite.
Yeah, I mean, you've done this many times, right? I mean, right now the primary way of inviting is just by copying the link and sharing it via some off-program messaging app. And then you can just share that, by email, by text message, WhatsApp, whatever it may be. And then whoever you want to invite, they can just join by clicking the link and hitting join, right? Soon we're going to have a discovery mechanism in the platform itself. That's coming in a few weeks. But currently, like I would say, if you are interested in playing with other people, you should hop onto our Discord and then go to the Discord and post the link there. And there are almost always people who are ready to jump into a game.
Absolutely. Cool. So then the other thing I would like to do is, so you mentioned before that if you play non-NFT modes, so I'm going to go back to main menu for a second and create a new game again. And I'm just going to, okay, so I'm just going to do that. You mentioned that in NFT mode, we can't change settings, right? Because and we went through this, but in this you can. So if I were to personalize right now, and let's say, oh, shoot, that's right. And do that. If I go back now, my game's going to look different.
That's right.
Very cool.
So you can do that on the fly, as you're playing.
Very cool. Do you ever do that? Have you ever played a game where you just keep changing your environment just for the sake of it and just to see what happens?
No. I am if I'm playing, then I prefer to not have all those other variables change. So I have my default, which I like, and I stick to that.
Makes sense. So this is also interesting. So I know this is something that's come up. Captured move history.
Yeah, so that's allowing people to see what pieces have been captured already, and so that only you need to start a game. So if you start this game very fast, and well, this is going to take a second.
I'm just going to go take someone's piece just to do the thing if I can.
But you see the move history is enabled by default. I mean, there's only limited real estate, and so so the move history, you can either only have either the captured box or the move history, and right by default is the move history.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get myself into a place where I can sacrifice a piece to see what this looks like. I would like general disclaimer, this is not what my game usually looks like, just in case anyone, there we go.
Anyway, okay, so you still can't pause, so now your turn, but
yes. If I hit that, oh, I see captured at the bottom.
And you see that you also lost a pawn, right? And so that's what that's for. Again, it's I think this is very useful for watchers. If there's a tournament game or something and you're coming in at move 45, it lets you know what's happened. If you go back to move history and you click on any one of these other moves in the back, it actually goes to that position, and you can actually treat this as a play, right? So if you go down to move 1 all the way at the bottom and you hit the play button, it'll bring you back to the upfront right now. And if it's a game that's over, then I think it's a second person, so pretty quickly. And you're also able to open up any of these positions in the study board. So if you go to move 4, this is obviously not a particularly, and you hit that thing, it goes to the study board, and then you can sort of see that there. So and this now the position in the study board. So again, this is useful for watchers. This is useful for people who are analyzing a game and they want to mess around. That's sort of the intention of this. So
for sure. And then the other fun thing that I've realized is very popular, which I didn't know, is this thing called rotate board, which does that. And y'all. So the reason this is so funny is because a lot of people have a preference of where they like to play from the board. So I think I know Natalie, I think she likes the bottom right corner. Our Blitz host, Madhu, has told me before he prefers, I think, the bottom left, but I could be wrong on that. But basically, people have their board preferences, and so they actually rotate the board so that they can like play in that way that like is like in a way that makes them like helps them play their best game, which is really cool. I don't know. I
Yeah.
didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, and our devs spent a bunch of time messing around with the animation because they enjoyed doing that. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's dope. Yeah. I usually just play from wherever I'm playing.
Yeah.
But
And then the last is full screen, which again is just to make it it just blows it up to the entire screen so that it's the largest real estate the board can occupy on your computer.
for sure. Now, the last thing, firstly, we're like very close to the end, and I'm really sad to not get to talk about this more with you. But there is a last thing that's super interesting that I found out about recently, which is that there are different ways that you can actually move your pieces while playing a game. Is that true?
Oh yeah, so I mean, I think you can either click on a piece. So I mean, if you hit play and you just click on the bishop, it shows you all the moves that are valid. Did you
Okay.
click on it?
Yeah, so I clicked on the bishop, and I think I just need to select. I'm trying to not necessarily hold on. Oh, well, okay. Well,
And that shows the past, but I mean, yeah, I don't know why. Okay, now let's wait for your.
it might just be
Um,
because of the outline of the whites.
yeah,
Because
it
I
could be.
was
I think this color. But you can also drag and drop where as you lift a piece and drag it over something, it'll tell you whether that's like a legal move or not. So,
let's see.
right.
Oh, I'm
If
gonna
you
do
go
that.
to one of, yeah, and then that works. So, and then those are the two ways. It depends, and I mean, it's like useful. The drag and drop is faster sometimes. The click and point is faster sometimes. You want to be careful with the drag and drop so you don't drop it on the wrong square, but that can happen with the point as well. But really, again, it's like depends on what you want, right? If you're on a
Totally.
touchpad, the drag and drop is kind of annoying to do. If you're on a mouse, the drag and drop is actually much more natural. So it sort of like depends on your setup.
For sure. Um, do you have one that you usually play?
I think I primarily point and click. That's because I'm primarily doing it with a touchpad. I'm also used to that because the drag and drop is a slightly newer edition.
So I can see it.
But I think the drag and drop's quite smooth. So yeah, it seems to be something which a lot of people like. So
For sure. Very cool. Um, I'm completely emptied out. This is so bad. Whatever. I recognize this is not a real game, and um competitive spirit. I don't like it.
yeah, I guess you just pause and call it a day.
Oh man. Oh, anyway. Oh, and then you can also change the language even while you're here, it looks like, right? Is
But
that
yeah, you
true?
can change it wherever. Yeah, you can change it wherever.
Excellent. Very, very cool. I'm just gonna hit Spanish. This is so cool. All right. That's really it from me. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now. Um, do you have anything else that you'd like to add that
Not
I
really.
didn't?
I think it's like the primary focus has been on allowing people to play, right, the game, and I think most of the features we went over are just to allow people to play. There's more that's coming soon to sort of like increase competitiveness, help people understand their skill, allow people to find other players. There's a bunch of these kinds of features which are coming out soon, and hopefully I'll be back on here to chat about those. But yeah, I was very happy to talk everyone through, and of course, always happy to hear both feedback and sort of experiences of everyone playing. So
Absolutely. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for being gracious as always. Thank you to everyone who joined. This was really, really lovely. I really loved getting to know. I honestly, despite the fact that I've been playing for I think over a year now, pretty consistently, did not know I could do some of those things. So I've also learned some per always. Thank you for joining us. As Shreyas mentioned before, we are on Discord where you can come and join our community and you can play with all of us. Shreyas is on there. I'm on there. Every single person that I mentioned during this live is on there if you want to play with any of us. And there's so many more wonderful, wonderful players and a very, very welcoming set of people who will be there for you. To enjoy the game with and explore the game with. If we also have an Instagram, we have Facebook. If you happen to be a LinkedIn person, we have a LinkedIn as well. We're on Twitter. We're literally everywhere because we want to be accessible to y'all, like Shreyas was saying. So please come and join us on each of those places, each of those platforms. And yeah, second reminder again, that if you want to check out any of those FAQ videos, if you want to go over some of the stuff that Shreyas and I talked about today, they are in the description for our YouTube. And yeah, come play Quaternity with us. We're really excited to have you. All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Bye.